In 1960, if you walked into any garage in America, from Maine to California, from a farmhouse in Iowa to a suburb outside Detroit, you'd find the same 10 tools. Not similar tools, the exact same ones. A surveyor for Sears did the research that year. 92% of American households with a male head of household owned all 10. By 2010, that number was 14%, and only 3 of the original 10 were still there. Your father had these tools. Your grandfather definitely had them. They weren't luxury items. They weren't hobbies. They were the basic kit for being a functional man in your own home. And then, in less than a generation, they disappeared from garages across the country. Not because they stopped working, not because something better came along, but because the entire economy shifted to make sure you'd call someone instead of fixing it yourself. Here's exactly what those 10 tools were, why every man carried them, and the year-by-year timeline of how they were designed out of your life. You remember what a garage used to be. Not a storage unit for lawn chairs and Christmas decorations, a workshop, a place that smelled like motor oil and sawdust and the specific metallic bite of a tool that's been used hard and put away clean. You remember your father out there on a Saturday morning, shirt sleeves rolled up, a problem in front of him, and a pegboard of solutions behind him. He didn't need to Google anything, didn't need to watch a tutorial, didn't need to call a contractor and wait 3 weeks for an estimate. He walked into that garage, he picked up what he needed, and he solved the problem. That was just what men did. And every single one of those men had the same 10 tools. Because these weren't specialized equipment. They were the basics, the foundation, the things you needed to keep a house standing and a car running and a family provided for. Let's start with number 1, the tool that separated a man from a boy faster than anything else his father could teach him. A proper adjustable wrench. Not the cheap zinc-plated garbage they sell at the checkout counter now. A real crescent wrench. Forged steel, 10 inches long. Your grandfather could feel the weight difference between a real one and a fake one with his eyes closed. That wrench lived in every toolbox, every glove compartment, every kitchen drawer in America. You could tighten a pipe fitting, adjust a carburetor, remove a radiator hose, fix a lawnmower, or solve 100 other problems with that one tool. It was the first thing a father handed his son when it was time to learn. By 1960, Crescent had sold over 100 million of them. One survey from 1963 found them in 96% of American homes. Today, most men under 40 have never held one. Number 2, a cross-cut handsaw. 26 inches, 8 points per inch, hardwood handle, usually beech or hickory, worn smooth from actual use. Your grandfather could cut a 2x4 square in under a minute. No electricity, no battery pack. Just sharp teeth, a steady hand, and the muscle memory that came from doing it 1,000 times. Every man knew how to sharpen it with a file. Every man knew the difference between a rip cut and a cross cut. That saw built fences, framed sheds, cut firewood, repaired porches. It hung on the wall of every garage in 1960. By 1985, Sears stopped carrying them in most stores. They took up too much shelf space, and the profit margin on a saw that lasted 40 years wasn't worth it when they could sell you a circular saw, replacement blades, extension cords, and a repair contract instead. Number 3, a brace and bit set. If you know, you know. And if you don't, your father's father certainly did. A hand brace, that crank-handled drill your grandfather used before cordless drills were even imagined. Slow, controlled, powerful. You could feel the bite of the bit into the wood. You could stop on a dime. You could drill a perfect hole in an oak beam without splintering the backside because you had complete control over speed and pressure. A decent brace and a set of auger bits cost about $12 in 1960. Adjusted for inflation, that's under $100 today. But you'd use it for 50 years. Maybe your son would inherit it. That's exactly why they stopped making them affordable. DeWalt introduced the first consumer cordless drill in 1961. By 1975, the brace and bit had been phased out of every major hardware chain in America. Not because it stopped working, because a 50-year tool is a bad business model. Number 4, a carpenter's square. Not a plastic speed square, not a laser level, a steel carpenter's square. 2 feet on the long side, 16 inches on the short side. Stamped with rafter tables, board foot measurements, brace measurements, and octagon scales. Your grandfather used it to frame a roof, square a door, lay out stairs, check if a foundation was true. He didn't need a calculator. The math was stamped right into the tool. Every man who built anything, a doghouse, a deck, a barn, an addition to his house, had one of these. In 1960, Stanley sold over 2 million of them. In 2020, they sold 40,000. The knowledge stamped into that square? Gone. Replaced by apps that need battery power and Wi-Fi to tell you what a piece of steel could tell you instantly in 1960. Now here's where the timeline gets suspicious. Number 5, a soldering iron and solder. The plug-in kind, 40 watts, copper tip. In 1960, when your radio stopped working, your television went fuzzy, your toaster quit, or a lamp shorted out, you didn't throw it away. You pulled out the soldering iron and you fixed it. Every man knew how to resolder a cold joint, replace a blown capacitor, reattach a loose wire. This wasn't a hobby. This was basic home maintenance. But between 1975 and 1990, every single appliance manufacturer in America and Japan redesigned their products to make repair impossible. Soldered connections became glued components. Screws became tamper-proof bolts. Circuits became sealed black boxes. And in 2012, Apple successfully argued in court that you don't own the right to repair the phone in your pocket. The soldering iron didn't become obsolete. It became illegal to use on half the things it used to fix. Number 6, a set of combination wrenches, not a socket set. Wrenches, open end on one side, box end on the other, 1/4 inch through 1 inch, sometimes bigger. Chromed steel, each one stamped with its size. Your father could grab the right wrench by feel in a dark engine bay. He knew the sound each one made when it hit the concrete floor of the garage. Those wrenches fixed cars, bicycles, washing machines, lawnmowers, tractors, gates, and everything else, held together with nuts and bolts. In 1960, a decent Craftsman set cost about $8. Lifetime warranty. You broke one, you walked into Sears, you walked out with a new one. No receipt needed. That warranty built brand loyalty for 70 years. And when Sears died, so did the promise. Now you buy a wrench set at a big box store. It's made in a factory you've never heard of from steel that rounds off after 6 months. And there's no one left to honor the guarantee your grandfather got for free. If you made it this far, you already understand something most people never will about what this country used to be. You understand that competence wasn't a hobby, it was a requirement. And the tools we're about to cover next, these are the ones that hit the hardest. Because these are the ones they didn't just stop making affordable. These are the ones they made sure your sons would never learn to use. Number 7, a hand plane. A Stanley No. 4 smoothing plane, most likely. Cast iron body, hardwood handles. A blade you could sharpen to the point where it would shave hair off your arm. Your grandfather used that plane to fit a door, flatten a board, clean up a rough edge, or true a piece of wood that came out twisted from the lumberyard. He didn't need a sander. He didn't need electricity. He needed sharp steel and steady hands. The sound of a plane taking a thin curl of wood off a pine board. If you ever heard that sound in your father's garage, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know it's a sound your grandson has never heard. By 1980, woodshops in American high schools stopped teaching hand tool skills almost entirely. Power tools were faster, easier to teach, easier to standardize, and they required consumables, blades, belts, sandpaper. A hand plane required only skill, and skill doesn't sell replacement parts. Number 8, a hacksaw, not a reciprocating saw. A hacksaw, C-frame, 12-inch blade, 24 teeth per inch for metal, 14 for plastic or softer material. You could cut through a rusted bolt, a piece of pipe, a broken lock, a fence post, a bed frame, anything that needed cutting that wasn't wood. Your father had one in the garage, and half the time there was another one in the basement. It cost about $3 in 1960. The blades were 50 cents for a pack of 5. You didn't plug it in. You didn't charge it. You didn't need a safety guard or a user manual. You just needed a vise or a steady hand and the willingness to work. By the 1990s, the cordless reciprocating saw had replaced it in every contractor's truck and most home toolboxes. Faster? Sure. Better? Not if the battery's dead. Not if the motor burns out. Not if you just need to cut one bolt and you're 60 miles from the nearest hardware store. But a hacksaw that lasts forever is a lousy product to build a business around. Number 9, a good flashlight. And when I say good, I mean a 2-cell Maglite or its 1960s equivalent, a solid, heavy, metal-bodied flashlight that doubled as a weapon if you needed it to. Your grandfather kept one in the car, one in the basement, one in the garage. Batteries lasted 6 months if you didn't use it much. You could drop it off a ladder and it wouldn't break. You could loan it to your neighbor and expect to get the same one back. It wasn't disposable, it was a tool. Today, most flashlights are plastic. They're brighter, sure, and they're trash in 2 years. You can't repair them, you can't replace the bulb. When the LED cluster dies or the rechargeable battery stops holding a charge, you throw the whole thing away and buy a new one. Planned obsolescence dressed up as innovation. Your grandfather's flashlight is probably still in a drawer somewhere, still working, still ready. That's exactly the problem. From a manufacturer's perspective, that's exactly the problem. And this next one, this is the one that tells you everything you need to know about what changed and why. Number 10, a volt-ohm meter, a multimeter, analog, not digital. Your father used it to test whether a battery was good, whether a fuse was blown, whether a wire was live, whether a motor was grounded. He didn't need to be an electrician. He just needed to know how to read a needle on a dial. That meter kept him from calling an electrician for a $50 service visit to replace a $2 fuse. It kept him from buying a new battery when the old one just needed charging. It kept him from replacing an entire appliance when a single wire had come loose. And in the 1970s and 80s, appliance companies and electrician trade groups quietly lobbied for electrical code changes that made more and more home electrical work require a licensed professional. Not because it was too dangerous for a homeowner, Because it was too profitable to allow homeowners to keep doing it. The multimeter didn't disappear. The legal right to use it on your own property started to. Your grandfather didn't carry these 10 tools because he loved tools. He carried them because his family needed a roof that didn't leak, and a car that started in the morning, and a house that stayed warm in the winter. He carried them because being the man in that house meant the problems were his to solve. He didn't call someone. He didn't wait for someone. He walked into the garage, he looked at the problem, and he fixed it. Because that's what his father taught him to do, and his father before him. That chain, father to son, hands on the same wrench, the same saw, the same plane, that chain held for centuries. It didn't break on its own. Someone cut it. These tools aren't extinct. You can still find them if you know where to look. Estate sales, antique stores. Your own father's garage, probably, if you went out there and opened the right drawer. They still work. A crescent wrench from 1955 still turns a nut just fine. A handsaw from 1960 still cuts wood. A brace and bit still drills a hole. The tools didn't fail. The system that taught men how to use them that failed. Or more accurately, that system was dismantled, piece by piece, school by school, garage by garage. But here's what still matters. You didn't forget. You're watching this video right now because you remember what it felt like to fix something with your hands. To solve a problem because you had the tools and the knowledge and the will to do it. That didn't disappear. It's still in you. And if you've got a son or a grandson or a nephew, you've got a choice. You can let the chain stay broken, or you can bring him into the garage this Saturday. Pull one of those 10 tools off the pegboard and put it in his hands. The system forgot these skills. You didn't. And that makes you the last line. If this hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to the guy who still has his father's toolbox in the basement and doesn't know what half of it does anymore. Send it to your son who thinks a Phillips head screwdriver is the only tool he needs. And subscribe. Because there are a lot more tools, a lot more skills, and a lot more truths they don't want remembered. Next time, we're talking about the one repair every man could do in 1965 that's now illegal in half the country. You'll want to see that one. These tools mattered, the men who used them mattered, and you still do.